I realized I was going to need to do something to make a living, and I didn't know what I was going to do. It didn't look like I was going to graduate high school. My dad is a theoretical physicist. He was walking me to school when I was 6. He used to walk me down to about halfway, and then he would leave me there. He would turn left and go off to work in his lab. And one day we stopped at our separation point, and I said, I don't know why I said it, but both he and I remember very well. I said, do you like what you do? And he said, I love it. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, you know the feeling the night before your birthday? I feel like that every day. My response was, I'm going to do what you do. And when I turned 13, 14, my parents divorced, and it was a very high conflict divorce. Just like one of these situations where everyone did the best they could, but it was just turned into a very bad situation. So my dad moved out and away. My mom was at home and dealing with her own set of struggles around that. I wasn't going to school much at all. I was skateboarding. I was not a good student. I barely finished high school. And I was really struggling to figure things out. But what happened was, at some point, I was actually removed from school. And as a condition for being let back in, I had to do weekly therapy. So now I was like doing some meditation, I was going to therapy, I was trying to get my life together, but I was still a pretty poor student. Eventually, I realized I really like physical challenge. So I started getting into running, martial arts, Muay Thai boxing. And I started, so there I was like doing some reading, doing some fighting. And I was getting into a lot of fights. I really had a lot of kind of behavioral issues going on, still a lot of anger. I was just really not looking anything like a future scientist at that point. And what happened was, it was 4th of July 1994. I actually got into a very serious physical altercation with a bunch of guys. And it was after that I realized, okay, I was 18, I'm getting into fights, I'm living in some random squat, I'm not doing much of anything, I'm working these jobs, like I'm in, I realized, I was like, I'm in trouble. I'm in real trouble. And because at some point, the story was just going to keep going this direction, and there was just nothing was going anywhere. And I started to realize that whatever had happened, whatever kind of family challenges that I'd had, I wasn't going to become a professional skateboarder. I'd kind of separated from those friends. I was not a particularly talented athlete. I just realized I got to do something. This is just, I think I was scared, honestly. I think I sort of hit my rock bottom. And I was lucky that drugs and alcohol were never really my thing, but I didn't know what to do with myself. So I decided to move home and enroll in some university courses there. But I decided at that point also that I would get very serious about fitness and learning. And so I just started doing a lot of running, a lot of weight training. I learned everything I could about the mind and body. I would go into the bookstores and just read everything I could about fitness, about psychology. And I decided to take psychology classes. So I took a psychology class, and then eventually I went back to university. I lived alone at that point, and I took a class on abnormal psychology. It was basically about schizophrenia, depression, disorders of the nervous system, everything to Parkinson's disease, these kinds of things. And I was just fascinated because the guy teaching the class, his name was Harry Carlisle, who was a professor, was telling me about all these mechanisms in the brain and body, neurotransmitters and hormones and all these kinds of things that were disrupted in these diseases that I think I had seen a lot of. I saw a lot of depression. I saw a lot of, having a friend commit suicide. I had friends, who were addicts. I was always fascinated by how some people just do really well, just drinking on the weekends, and other people become alcoholics. Like, why? It didn't make any sense. And it couldn't have just been life circumstances. So a light bulb went on. I was like, I'm going to do this. I want to work on this. I want to understand the mind. Because I'd gone through my own thing of having been the kind of normal kid, happy, healthy childhood, then everything just kind of fell apart. I was depressed, but I was also angry. I was seeking, and I was like, I want to figure this out. Throughout my career, if there's anything that I can really recommend to people, regardless of age, is that, finding a good mentor. And mentors change over time. And I realized that science was for me because the adventure never ends. You never get you get conclusions along the way, but there's always that anticipation and that excitement. And, I'm smiling because in many ways, that's what I realize that just now in this moment, that's what my dad was talking about. It's that novelty seeking, and you know it's there, and you just need to untease it. Just need to find it. You're trying to peel things back in layers. You go too fast and you screw up. So it taught me patience. I always say the big difference between scientists and other people on the planet is that when a scientist sees something that excites them, they slow down. Because they know that in speeding up is where you make errors of judgment, errors of motor errors. And so I fell in love with it, and I was getting good grades, and I went from a shit student, and I became a straight A, A plus student as best I could, just through hard work. I used to sit in my room, read my textbooks, and just rewrite them, memorize them. I used to close my eyes and memorize them, and studying until 3 a.m. or whatever, sleep till 10. It was college years. And I realized I had a pretty good memory, and I had a knack for it, and I was decent enough with my hands that I could do experiments in the lab. And at that point, that was it. I was on fire, I was like, that's it. I'm going to get my PhD by the time I'm 30. I'm going to get a faculty position by the time I'm 35. I want tenure at a major university by the time I'm 40. And that just became my singular goal. I've had 3 of the most spectacular mentors ever. They were kind. They pushed me. They were tough when they needed to be tough. They were great people. But I had this weird experience where Harry Carlisle, greatest university lecturer, teacher ever. I can credit him with, being, in the career I am today, blew his head off in the bathtub. And I was like, oh, wow. Which was, for me, was just devastating. It's just because he was the figure he was, but also I think it's because it didn't make sense, right? This is the guy that taught me about all this brain mechanisms. But I learned that no matter how good we get at understanding things, we all still have these limitations that keep us from really seeing our blind spot. It was tragic, right? I realized, humans need help. That humans need help. We're really good at figuring things out. We're really good at outsourcing. We're really good at rapid progress. But I realized that, a significant contribution that my lab could make would be to devote a significant amount of our time and resources to understanding, what is stress? How does it work? It's apparent in all these mental diseases, depression, anxiety. What is it? It's not always bad. Stress, you grow from it too. So I look at it as, how can what I do in my lab benefit the greatest number of people? And before I'm gone, because one thing is certain is that at some point, the reaper's coming for me, hopefully later. When I go, I want to leave behind tools. I want to leave not ideas, not inspiration necessarily. People get that, great, but tools, real tools that people can use when they're down, when they're confused, when they're in a state of lack of focus and they need to focus, when they're stressed, when they I want to attack those problems.